Chapter 3: Shield Manufacture and Assembly.
The materials you'll need for this section are a clear acrylic sheet, we know as plexiglass. You'll need a 3 foot by 4 foot section if you can get it. 3 foot by 6 foot is what we've been having to buy. So you'll need some more of the picture hanging wire, a little bit less than 5 feet. 2 fans. We've been using the Forcone 50 CFM bath fans. And an irrigation spout, which includes a full pattern plastic shrub head sprinkler with nozzle, 1/2 inch plastic swing joint elbow that goes from 1/2 inch pipe thread to 1/2 inch female pipe thread, 1/2 inch male pipe thread to 3/4 inch female hose thread PVC swivel, some garden hose, and both a male and female hose repair end adapter.
I would also recommend using a hose washer.
The tools you'll need, marking utensil like a Sharpie, T-square, I'm using a 4 foot, rotary tool, otherwise known as a Dremel,
along with a carving bit,
some pliers with wire cutters, some heavy-duty scissors, and a screwdriver. The shield is the clear acrylic sheet mounted at the top of the dome. We've used plexiglass as a crown shield on all Hortodomies so far. This clear sheet at the crown of the dome allows us to mount bulbs above the shield that shine down onto the growing bed, while mounting ventilation fans into the shield, providing ventilation to the space that can potentially be heated by the bulbs if desired, while mounting the irrigation spout to the underside of the shield, above the center of the bed so that it doesn't threaten the electronic peripherals just above it. The acrylic sheet should have a clear protective plastic film on both sides, which makes for an ideal drawing surface to mark out the necessary cuts. Using a Sharpie and a flat measuring instrument, I'll be using a 4 foot T-square, draw the shield onto the acrylic sheet. Measure in approximately 1 foot, 6 15/16 inches along the top edge, and 1 foot, 1 13/16 inches down the side. Draw a line between these 2 points to complete one of the 5 edges of the pentagon. Continue this process, drawing the entire pentagon. You can draw additional lines for reference. I marked an additional line down the center of the pentagon, as well as extending tab lengths along 4 edges of the pentagon. We wouldn't end up needing these tab extensions, but it's easier to cut off extra later than it is trying to figure out how to reconnect it. Measure in from the sides of the pentagon to mark the cutouts for ventilation. Also mark the hole locations for wire retainers that we will be using to secure the bulbs, fans, and irrigation. Wearing the appropriate safety gear and making sure to use a well-ventilated space, use the rotary tool with a small carving bit to remove unwanted acrylic sheeting. This method takes time as you're basically cutting through the acrylic with a spinning bit. I butchered the very first shield I ever made using a jigsaw with a standard serrated blade. I ended up with more fractures along the edge than I cared to count. The next shield I made, I used a heavier jigsaw with a razor edge blade. Even the razor edge fractured the acrylic. So far, if I take my time, I don't fracture the acrylic when I use the rotary tool. As with many of our manufacturing and assembly methods, we're sure there are better methods out there, and we'd love to hear about any ways any of these steps might be done better. However, most often we find we just have to work with the tools available to us. I like to place my fans and irrigation spout in place on the shield when I'm marking the wire retention hole locations. When the shield is ready for installation, remove the clear plastic protective covering and place the shield on top of the dome's suspension wires, using the shield suspension diagram if necessary to properly orient fan ports and irrigation hose path. Once the shield is properly oriented over the suspension, place the ventilation fans into their ports and wire them in place. Next, assemble the irrigation. First, connect the full pattern shrub sprinkler head with the nozzle to an elbow. We have a 1/2 inch full pattern shrub sprinkler that threads onto a 1/2 inch male pipe thread to a 1/2 inch female pipe thread elbow. Then we connect a swivel adapter that connects to the male end of a gardening hose. In our case, we used a 1/2 inch male pipe thread to 3/4 inch female hose thread PVC swivel. We then connect the 3/4 inch swivel of our irrigation hose. The length of this irrigation hose will vary based on how far you want your dome to sit from your fertigation unit. Our irrigation hose ended up being around 7 feet long. When you determine how long an irrigation hose you need, cut the length from the roll of hose and repair the ends accordingly with one poly male hose repair piece at one end and a poly female hose repair piece at the other end. Screw the 3/4 inch PVC swivel onto the 3/4 inch poly male hose repair end and wire it into place with the irrigation spout oriented downward and centered over the bed. And that concludes the shield manufacture and assembly portion of this DIY Hortodomia instruction.